Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range with a couple of really cool classic rifles. On the bench in front of me, I have an M14, but today's video is not about the M14. It's about a Beretta BM59. Now, 5 years ago, we did a video on the BM59 Para, and yeah, a cool video. Go watch it if you haven't seen it already. But today's video is going to be about a commercial rifle that was imported into the United States and the configuration that it came in, which is quite a bit different from the military configuration. And it's just kind of a cool piece of history. But to tell that story, we're going to start off with the M14, which you see here. This is a bull of defense, and the M14 is an absolutely classic rifle. It's loved in the United States. American shooters absolutely adore these things. Wasn't so hot as an infantry rifle. We might touch upon that a little bit in today's video, but as a civilian rifle, I mean, if you don't love this thing, you got something wrong with you. So anyway, we're going to talk about the BM59, this Beretta import. It's really kind of a cool, rare piece from back in the day. So let's get started with today's video, do a little bit of shooting with these rifles, and have some fun.
A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below.
So coming out of World War II and Korea, the U.S. government was looking to swap the M1 Garand out for something else, and the M14 came out of that program. And the program was to try to modify the M1 Garand, because keep in mind, that rifle was probably the most modern rifle in World War II up until we saw the STG-44 and stuff like that show up. But it was, gas-operated, self-loading, fed from an internal magazine, and the rest of the world's militaries pretty much were using bolt actions. Not always, but, we had SVT-40s and stuff like that out there. But it was quite forward-thinking for its time. But it quickly went out of style because of its internal magazine and its gas system and the wooden furniture and things like that. The world was changing, and the U.S. government saw that with what Russia was doing, what the Germans were doing, and other nations were doing when developing their new next-generation rifles like the AK-47, rifles like the STG-44, the Fedorov, things like that. And so an intermediate cartridge was something that the U.S. government was interested in. We were working with some of our allies. They proposed other cartridges that probably would have been better than 308, but we settled on 308. Not exactly an intermediate cartridge by today's standards, but it was a little bit smaller than the 30-06 it replaced, right? And so the M14 unfortunately wound up being one of our shortest lived primary issued infantry rifles in the United States. It carried on all the way up until, the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. It was pulled out of retirement for use out there because we just didn't have anything in 308 that we could use to kind of reach out and touch enemies. So it stuck around, but as a primary issued weapon, it didn't last long. It was very quickly replaced in Vietnam by the M16, and the M16 has now become our longest serving infantry rifle. But that's not to take away from the M14. It's an elegant, beautiful rifle, and it is heavily based on the M1 Garand, which was America's baby. I mean, it got us through World War II, it got us through Korea, and Americans loved it, but it was a little long in the tooth. The M14 changed a number of things, shortened the rifle, changed the gas system out, put the muzzle device you see on there, changed the front sight, put a 20-round box magazine in it. And so they changed it quite a bit. And so this rifle is, it's reasonably accurate. It's combat accurate, which when you say that, you're talking about 3 to 4 MOA with ball ammunition. But you can tune them and get them into, match quality configurations. And people have done that for many, many years. But the M14 wasn't the end-all be-all. The United States was about the only country that really heavily invested in it. But the Italians, after World War II, had a whole bunch of M1 Garands sitting around, and they had the same idea. They saw what we were doing in the United States, but the BM59 followed a very similar path. But the Italians took actual M1 Garands and made changes to the actual receiver of the M1 Garand and things like that, and made the BM59. So let's bring a BM59 up, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And the very heavy usage of existing M1 Garand parts to make the BM59, which later they would start to manufacture those things like receivers as they burned through the surplus and needed new rifles. But anyway, so let's take a look at the BM59 next. I love this rifle. So the BM59, now this is one of my prized possessions in my collection. This is a BM59 that was made by Springfield Armory back in the day. Springfield Armory's done some really cool stuff over the decades, and this was one of them. And they built these off parts kits using their receiver. So it has a Springfield Armory receiver, but then the rest of it, I believe this one is a Beretta parts kit, but other companies would make parts. So the BM59, this one is in its military configuration. And this one was in the Robert K. Brown collection, which is the original editor-in-chief of Soldier of Fortune magazine. And so I have a letter of authenticity and all that stuff. This was used in an article, I think in like 1979 or something like that. So anyway, it's a really cool piece in the collection. But the BM59 is literally a modified M1 Garand. Now, you could argue the M14 is as well, but it has its own receiver. The BM59, the early guns that used actual M1 Garand receivers, still had all the original cuts in there for the original internal feeding system and all that stuff. It was seriously just repurposed. Now, later, when they ran out of mil-spec, or mil-serp, I should say, receivers, Beretta did start to manufacture their own receivers, and obviously a lot of those cuts that were necessary for the internal magazine and things like that from the M1 Garand were left out. But the very early rifles were definitely made on actual M1 Garand receivers. Now, you can also use original M1 Garand stocks that were cut down and things like that. Out here, of course, they've shortened the rifle considerably, and so it has still a very M1 Garand style gas system. You'll notice the gas system comes all the way out to almost the end of the barrel, which is exactly how the M1 Garand operated. It tapped gas off very late. The M14 has much more barrel out here, and the gas system has been shortened. Okay, so then out here on the end, let's kind of start from the end and work back. This is a muzzle device. It's also a grenade launching device. On the Paras, some of them would have a device. I think I showed this on my 5-year-old video. You can twist this off and take it off to shorten it for the Para version. But on this rifle, it's permanently affixed to the rifle. It also has a bayonet lug down there. And then, of course, a compensator and flash hider on the end of the barrel. Coming back, standard M1 Garand type front sight, but it does have a gas block on here that's different. And this gas block has a shutoff and a grenade launching sight. So this goes in conjunction with the muzzle device that's on the weapon. Then they integrated a bipod into the design. Nice lightweight stamped bipod. Doesn't really add much weight to the weapon at all. But yeah, I could see where that'd be extremely beneficial, right? Coming back, here's your sling swivel over here. And you can see the beautiful wood. This is a literal M1 Garand style receiver. If you're familiar with the M1 Garand, this button on the M1 Garand would be the method by which you would unload the weapon. So you would pull the bolt to the rear, hold it, hit that button, and it would shoot the end block clip out with the remaining rounds in the gun to clear it out. But that has been repurposed. It's in the exact same location, but now when the weapon goes empty, that moves back, and that is your bolt hold. So when you push on that, after you insert a fresh magazine, you just push on the button, and it chambers another round. So that's been repurposed. Kind of cool. Stripper clip guide up on top that's been added, because back in the day when this was being used, obviously stripper clips were still popular. So even though it feeds from a 20-round box magazine, you could top off that box magazine with stripper clips. The M14 has a similar feature, but of course it is intended to be used with these 20-round magazines. The rear sight is very much like an M1 Garand. Hasn't really changed much. And here you see the Springfield markings on the receiver. As you move back into the stocks, there's a rubber recoil pad that they would put on the end. And then there's a trap door in there. There's a little lever here. You pry it out with the tip of a tool, pry that out, and a little sheet metal door will slide open. And that's where your cleaning kit and stuff like that would go into the BM59. So those are the quick features of the rifle. This, again, is a military configuration built from a military parts kit. But Beretta actually sold BM59 semi-automatic, super civilianized versions of the gun decades ago for a short time. And we have one here to show you. So let's take a look at that rifle next. Okay, so in the last segment, I forgot a critical component that I wanted to point out to you guys. It's on the original mil-spec BM59. I did a short on this here on YouTube, but this little guy is a winter trigger / grenade launching trigger. And winter triggers are used because you can see how small this trigger guard is. If you have a big, thick, gloved hand, you're not going to get your finger in there very comfortably or safely. And so they would offer winter triggers for guns like the M1 Garand, which we did a short on. This is one of its winter triggers that just pops into a little hole that's behind the trigger guard, and then it gives you an external lever. This was integrated into the rifle, folds against the receiver, but also with grenades. you put a grenade on the end of a rifle like this and fire a grenade launching blank, it's going to have considerably more recoil than standard 308. And so the concern is you don't want your finger on the trigger guard with heavy recoil because it might hurt the finger. So just get the finger out of the trigger guard and use that for launching grenades as well. So I wanted to point that out because that will be suspiciously absent from the next rifle I want to show you, which is the commercial version of the BM59 that Beretta imported into the United States. So this is an example of a commercial grade BM59, and it's missing all of its cool guy features, right? And so they don't even have the military hard rubber butt plate. I'll show you. We'll start off with the rear, move our way forward and talk about the features that were deleted from this particular rifle. But when you take a look at this, I mean, this is, in my opinion, lower grade material. It's not even, it's like, it is rubbery, but it's dry rotting. And so you'll see it's just starting to just fall off. It sets in a safe and it's just self-disintegrating. And that's just kind of, you know, the state of, I guess, rubber back in the day. Now, the military butt pads are black hard rubber, and I have, of the BM59s I have 3 or 4 of them. They're not causing any problems. They're not dry rotting. It just seems to be this commercial butt pad. Moving forward, we still have the sling on it. You know, it's obviously going to still use 20-round magazines, but you'll notice, first of all, there's no winter trigger / grenade launching trigger here. So that's been deleted. And I would imagine this is because of import regulations. But yeah, winter trigger / grenade launching trigger, gone. Sorry, oil all over this thing. And then back here, you know, we have the Beretta marked receiver. So this is a receiver that would have been manufactured by Beretta. This is not mill surplus. This is an actual Beretta-made receiver. And so internally, it's not going to have all the cuts and stuff like that you would find on an M1 Garand. But again, earlier, the M59s used by the Italian military and assembled by Beretta and modified by Beretta did actually use M1 Garand receivers. Still has a stripper clip guide up here. Here's your bolt hold over here. And Beretta parts will always have PB Beretta marked on them. So even the little parts like this is marked Beretta. But moving forward, come out here, we have the same gas system. You can see this a little bit better now because it doesn't have the bipod, been deleted. It has the same block, but it doesn't have the process where they cut for the grenade launching gas shutoff sight. And so it's just a solid block. It's smooth on both sides. And this is where the grenade launching sight would go. And that's where the gas shutoff would be. And then on the end, we have a featureless muzzle device. It's not ported. It's not anything. It's just a hunk of metal. So you don't have a flash hider. You don't have a muzzle brake. You don't have folding bipod. You don't have gas shutoff. You don't have a winter trigger. They just went through and deleted all the military features. But, I mean, it's a good-looking rifle. I certainly like the military configuration much better. But it's a nice shooting rifle. Now, keep in mind, guys, that rifles like this and M14s and stuff like that have free-floating firing pins. And when you shoot them, you want to use military grade 308, if you can find it, which has a heavier primer. You want to stay away from lightly primed ammunition, like match ammunition and stuff like that, because they can slam fire and create an unsafe condition. So you want to use heavily primed ammunition, preferably M80 ball or something like that, out of M14s and BM59s. Today we're going to be shooting some Fiocchi because we've had good luck with this in rifles like this. We won't be shooting Federal American Eagle because it is lightly primed and it can cause problems. All right, so let's do a little bit of shooting with this bad boy. So it does use the same military 20-round magazine. And these are good quality mags. I think I only have 5 rounds loaded here. But just like the M14, it's kind of a rock and lock. So you put the toe in front and just kind of closed itself. And then load it like you would an M14. Matter of fact, the manual of arms is going to be very similar to an M14. All right? Recoil, everything about this is going to be very, very similar to an M14. Short, handy little rifle. All right, 5 rounds. So when shooting this side by side with an M14, you're not really going to notice much of a difference. Not at all. Trigger feels the same. Shoulder's the same. Recoil is about the same, even though it has a completely different gas system in it. It's just a very, very fun, easy rifle to shoot. The only downside is the ugliness of having stripped off all the really cool military features. Let's take a look inside of the rifle and show you what that looks like. All right, let's take her apart. First thing you want to do, as always, is make sure the weapon is clear. So I'm going to drop the magazine out. It has a paddle release like the M14, AK, other rifles. So I'm just going to pinch and rotate the mag forward and out. I want to make sure the chamber is empty, which it is. Let that bolt go home. And now, just like the M14 or M1 Garand, you take the rear of the trigger guard, lift up on it, and in doing so, you can then just lift the trigger group out of the rifle. Once you have the trigger group out, you're just going to rotate the end of the receiver up and just kind of rotate it out of the stock like that. Then I just invert the weapon, and you'll notice it's very similar, but also dissimilar to the M1 Garand. This, you just pull forward on the recoil spring and guide rod, and it'll just lift up and out. And there's the recoil spring guide rod, and then here's the recoil spring. Whoops, as I almost dropped my little slinky there. And then you just pull the charging handle to the rear, just like an M14 or M1 Garand. There's a little takedown notch cut into the receiver here, so you just draw the charging handle back, push up slightly as you're pulling it back, and you hit that spot. And it will just kind of pull out. And there's your gas piston, very much like the M1 Garand and the op rod. Again, identical. And of course, the bolt. And you just take it out like you would any other M14 bolt or Garand bolt. And so field stripping is very, very simple. A little bit more simplified than the M1 Garand and pretty similar to the M14. So if you take a look inside, you see how it's smooth here? Kind of a different cut to the parts down here. This is a Beretta manufactured receiver. It's smooth on the inside, doesn't have the tracks and everything for the internal magazine because obviously it doesn't need them. So it's just really cool seeing that Beretta made receiver. Put it back together, you just reverse the process. Bring the bolt back to the little cam pin is like right about there. Take your op rod, a little bit tight because it wants to hit the receiver, but it'll fit. Set that little cam pin, if you will, into the charging handle. Find that takedown spot and just push it forward. Take your recoil spring guide rod, put it back into the recoil spring. Recoil spring goes inside of the gas piston. Make sure this little hook is facing up. And just push this back and set it right there, and it'll just drop into its little perch. Just push down on it until it clicks. That's back together. Take your stock, put the front end first, like that, and rotate back and down until the receiver sets inside the stock. Again, I just set it inverted. Make sure your trigger guard is all the way forward, and you'll find the tracks in there to set this into. Just kind of wiggle it around until it drops in, like that, and then put the trigger guard down, and she's back together. So overall, very, very simple and easy weapon to maintain in the field, given its age. So in the end, the BM59 is easily one of my favorite Cold War era rifles. It's a lot of fun to shoot. It's got a little bit of different flavor to it than the M14, but it complements it nicely. Sadly, they're no longer made in the United States. Springfield Armory did make receivers for them at one time. I showed you the Springfield rifle, but apparently they weren't selling. I don't know, but they don't currently make them. Maybe some other company could step up. I don't know. I just don't think there's much interest there. Springfield still makes the M14, and America loves the M14. So they're probably content with that rifle, and not many Americans even know this thing exists. But that's truly unfortunate because it's a very, very neat, interesting rifle. It's so fun to see what the Italians were able to do with original M1 Garand parts. If you have any questions about the BM59, ask those questions down below. If you served with the BM59, I love it when soldiers comment about historical weapons that I talk about. Comment down below. Let us know what your experiences with the BM59 were. Thank you for watching, guys. It's been 17 years that we've been doing this, and you've made it all possible. We absolutely love what we do here at the Military Arms Channel. If you'd like to support us in our effort to continue to bring you content like this, consider becoming part of our Patreon family. I do have a link down below. Right here on YouTube, you got the thanks and subscribe button underneath the video player you're watching right now. You can hit either one of those buttons and help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Again, thank you for those 17 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper. We'll talk to you guys soon.